Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. You've got myself and Nicola from 93 Digital. So we're going to talk a little bit around website projects. So I'm going to talk a little bit around the SEO planning process to make sure you build success into a website project. And then Nicola's going to talk a little bit around how within design, the strategy and discovery process for a successful project and what that looks like. So just to introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Michael, obviously. I'm the SEO account director here at 93 Digital. I've worked in marketing for about 8 years. I moved into SEO for about 5 or 6. And I really like getting into how, when your website is migrating or you're building a new site or whatever you're doing with your site, how we can bring search and SEO into it early on. And then, joined by Nicola. I'll let Nicola introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Nicola Campbell. I'm the head of design and UX at 93 Digital. So I'm involved in all of our discovery processes as well as our design processes. I'm going to be focusing a bit on the discovery process today, helping to lead through seamlessly into the design piece.
Great, thanks Nicola. Okay, so without further ado, I'll go first. So a lot of people ask me, what do you need for your site to succeed from an SEO perspective? And when that comes down to either building a new website or retheming the existing website or making changes, what does it boil down to? And from our perspective, we split SEO into 3 core fundamentals. So you've got the technical side, which is all around how your site is, how fast it is, how quickly it is to get around, how accessible it is, how easy it is to navigate, just how streamlined the site is and how easy it is to use. You've then got the content side of it, and content is obviously all around how much content is there on the site, what is that content targeting, what does that content say about you as a business, and then finally you've got the off-page stuff, which is all around links, which is all about how many links do you have pointing into your website, and where do those links come from, how high quality are they, and what does your link profile look like against competitors. Now, all 3 of these are really important from an organic point of view. If you've got a really technically healthy site and you've got lots of links pointing to it, but the content is perhaps not targeting the correct keywords, or the content hasn't been invested in, you may not rank that well. Equally, if you've got really great content and you've got a technically healthy site, but you've got no links pointing into you may not rank that well either. So it's really important to take into account all 3 of these. And a really key part of doing that is to think about bringing search data to the party as early as possible. So I'm a firm believer that search data completely transcends SEO. And the reason for that is that it's a really powerful indicator of demand. If you use search data, you can identify what do people search for related to my company, what questions do they ask, what features do they want, and you can use the data to actually identify what you should be talking about on your website. A lot of people say that search data is almost like the biggest database of human intentions, because people search in the search engine for what they need. So if you can utilize that data, bring it to the forefront and base some of your business decisions on that, then that's incredibly powerful for understanding what your brand could be, what you should offer, what you should answer, what people look for. So really important to do that. And like I said, imagine having the power to know what questions the people searching in your market were asking. Well, that's what search data is. You can see there in the AI space, I've searched for AI solution for oil and gas, and there's a number of questions there that people actually ask. And you can get more and more specific to match your niche, but incredibly powerful tool to allow you to just understand the direction of where your business could go. And I think search data should be brought in as early as possible. And when we go through discovery processes, which I'll come on to in a moment, in how we structure it, we try and bring search data to the party as early as possible, because it's what everything is based on. It's your targeting. It's really important. And another slide here, just to kind of think about searcher intent and your niche. So when we are talking about the different search terms that people search for, we need to make sure we're targeting keywords that match the intent of the searcher to your website. It's all well and good going after super high volume, high traffic keywords, that have like 20,000 volume, and you're like, oh, we want to get to number 1 for that. But the likelihood is that the people searching for that may not match the intent of what you do. They may not be interested in the solution that you provide. And secondly, there's a high chance you won't actually rank for those types of keywords. And the reason for that is that The search engine may determine them to be informational, and also they'll be way more competitive because it's got such a high search volume. So realistically, a really good way to do it is to get inside the mind of your customer and just really think about what would that person search for if they wanted the solution that we offer. And in B2C, this is important, but in B2B, especially in tech as well, it's incredibly important because the differences in keywords that you get and the intent and the nuances between that is so intricate. We need to make sure we're targeting the right keywords, as Drake says there. Now, I was talking about the way that we do discoveries, and that's incredibly important, but it's really, really important when you do look at a website to do what we call an SEO discovery. Some people call it an audit, we call it a discovery because there's a lot more to it than just auditing data. And what it should really do is at the start of your website projects, an SEO or digital marketer should look at the website and go, right, what can we fix? What are the problems that we've got? What are the blockers? What are the red flags that are currently showing on our site? And when you look at that, it's an opportunity to then go, okay, we're going to make sure that these elements are addressed when we go through the website build. When we start this project, we can address these problems. There's a myth out there that when you migrate across to a new website, you're going to lose visibility, and it's absolutely not true. If you're improving the infrastructure or improving the content, or just making the site generally better for the user, you should increase visibility, surely. But so many people make migrationary mistakes, let's say, that happens. But if you do everything right and you've got a good SEO or SEO team on board to do it, it doesn't have to be like that. So if you can find all the problems with the site and address them as part of the build, you're onto a winner. And it's really important to understand the current setup, the context of the site, and make sure therefore that you're future-proofing it when you come into those recommendations. And yeah, completing a migration with technical issues can cause a compound effect. And what that means is that if you've got technical issues and you just migrate them across to the new website, it can actually compound on other problems that perhaps that new website brings into the play, and it can actually make it really worse. So yeah, it's really important when you're looking at something like this, don't bring SEO in at the end, say, oh, we need to SEO the website now. Let's bring it in at the start when you've got an opportunity to make changes before it goes live. It's really, really important. So this is kind of a framework that we follow. This is what we call our SEO framework for success, and we've got 3 key stages. The first stage is the prepare stage at the bottom. So this is laying the foundation for your site to rank well, and this is all around let's make sure the site is in a good position. So we'll look at, is there anything that's blocking our content from being surfaced? What are the target keywords that our site needs? Are there any technical things that are holding the site back? What we call technical debt, which is where your site is slowed down by legacy or pre-existing technical situations. And what does the backlink profile look like? Once we've solved that, that can take anything between 2 months up to 6. Completely depends on the site. We then look at the optimized part, which is around, let's take the content that's already on the site, let's make it better. Let's make it so it targets the correct keywords that match the intent of what we do. Let's remove content cannibalization when we've got loads of content talking about the same stuff and no clear links between them of which is different. Let's then apply technical best practice to the site. And that will give a great user experience. I mean, if the site's fast and easy to get around and not clunky, the user's going to love that because you're going to be able to use the site better. And the search engine's trying to emulate that as much as they can. And then, yeah, also make sure you build and establish relationships with content collaborators to start getting that steady flow of links in. And then, yeah, finally, the top stage, which although it's at the peak and it's shortened, that by no means that the work is over then. That's actually really where the work begins. But the build section is all around, right, we've got a technically healthy site, we've got good content, we've looked at what we've done, we've got no blockers. Now let's build on it. Let's create loads of editorial content around what we do to capture those questions that people are asking. Let's possibly look to improve the infrastructure of the site to make it more, not just technically healthy, but technically better than what's already out there. And let's link build, let's use digital PR, let's get out there and really focus on how we can get our site known and get people linking through to us. And that's kind of the 3-tiered approach that we follow when we're looking at SEO through this. So how does this all relate to the user? Well, if the site's technically healthy, the user has a better experience, doesn't get frustrated. I'm sure there's loads of people on right now who have very often go onto websites, they're slow, can't get around, links are broken, it's frustrating. You go to a competitor, and obviously when that's in B2B tech world, that could be, you know, an £1 million lead that actually left you because the site isn't up to scratch. And if the content on the site matches the searcher's intent, they'll be happier with the relevant content. They're less likely to bounce. They're going to stay on the site. Great news. And what about for you? So talked about the searcher there, but for you, if the site's technically healthy, you're going to have lower bounce rate, more time spent on site. You've got the potential to rank for higher target keywords because Google will associate you to be technically healthy. Great news. The content on the site matches the intent, means you're going to get the right type of people coming to your website rather than people who are perhaps not in the market to buy or to become a lead. And of course, you rank better, so you've got more people coming to the site. So that's, you know, that's what we're all here for as SEOs. That's what we want. We want to get more people to the site, the relevant people who are going to convert, and that's kind of the process we follow for website projects. It's also the process we follow just in general for clients. You know, if someone comes in and they just want to improve what they've already got, we'll follow this. But from when you're migrating, this is an incredibly powerful way to do it. So yeah, that's everything from me. I'll now hand over to Nicola, who's going to talk about this from more of a design perspective.
Thanks, Michael. So I'll be giving a short overview today of the importance of strategy and specifically discovery process in running a successful website project. And now, if you have not been involved in a website project before, discovery is the piece that happens before you move on to the design and development stages. For every project, it can look quite different depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve and also the amount of time and budget that you've got available to you. But for every project, you will need to follow these 3 steps. So that is identifying the business needs, understanding the user needs, and then balancing those appropriately as you move through predetermined planning steps. So I'll talk about each of those steps in a little bit more detail, but first of all, just to cover off some of the key benefits. So first of all, you're just much more likely to end up with an effective website at the end of the day. We have quite a lot of clients that come to us having completed a website redesign relatively recently, so maybe even in the last year or something like that. But it's not a project that has delivered the results that they were hoping for or they were expecting, just simply because their effort hasn't been put into getting that foundational structural level there, first of all. So throughout the course of a project, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions to make. And ultimately, the more data that you've got to inform those decisions, the better those decisions are likely to be, and the more likely you are to reach your goals. Second, you're able to demonstrate that value a lot more clearly to other people. So not only because you've got the metrics of where you were to start with and where you've ended up, but also because you've gone through that process. So you've got more context to understand what it is that's actually affecting that success. And then you'll be able to see how you might want to improve on that even further in the future. And then finally, it really makes for a much smoother project process. So usually if people are looking to avoid or they're not that keen on doing a full discovery, it's just because they're looking to save on time and cost. But maybe what they're not considering there is that it's really this that's setting this kind of predictable and efficient process. So the decisions that you're taking are layering really nicely on top of one another. You're not having to go back and unpick work that's been done at an earlier time. And it's also really important if you've got multiple work streams that are happening at the same time, just to make sure that everyone is focused on that one appropriate goal that's going to get you to where you need to be. So first off, identifying the business needs. I've got quite a lot going on here on this slide, but on the left-hand side, it's the sorts of questions that you might be asking at this stage. And then on the right-hand side, some of the activities and deliverables that you might be doing to try to get to those answers. So I'm not going to go into each of these things, but really what you're trying to do here is make sure that the agency that you're working with has a really thorough understanding of your company and the goals that you're trying to get to, as well as your offering. And that way they'll be able to really bring their expertise to bear when they're thinking about how they're going to communicate this effectively to users and how they're going to structure the site to allow you to achieve those aims. And it also does enable you to put the website into a bit more context. So how does it actually sit as part of your business? How does it involve in your sales process? What's not working for you at the moment as well as it needs to? And then also for users, how is it going to sit in relation to your competitors' sites? So these are all really important things that you need to establish. Secondly, when it comes to identifying the user needs, this is something that really can't be emphasized enough, and it's something that we often have to come back to again and again throughout the course of the project to make sure that we're making the right decisions. So the reason for this is that you've probably got lots of people in your organization who are all really keen to get information about their departments up onto the website. You might have initiatives that you're really keen to make really sort of front and center for people. But unfortunately, if it's not something that the users are going to be interested to look at when they come onto your site to complete a specific task that they're trying to do, and it's not structured in a format that they're able to navigate that easily enough, or it's not in an engaging enough format to keep their interest, then it's just not going to matter, and it's not going to affect your sales at the end of the day. So it's really important to understand who your users are, the type of companies that they work for, what their group buying process looks like. And in that way, you're able to structure around what they're actually going to be doing on the site. And there's a couple of different ways that you could do this, or multiple different ways, but that's really either speaking to people directly with user interviews or focus groups, or it's by actually collecting data about how they're using your existing site. So maybe taking recordings of what they're doing, looking at heat maps, scroll maps, or maybe even conducting some usability tests so you can see how it's working at the moment. So when it comes on to planning an effective website, this can vary, again, quite a lot project to project, and you do want to make sure that it's specific to the individual project that you're working on. But we have found at 93 Digital that there is at least a minimum number of steps that are going to help you to get to the point that you need to. So I've got a brief rundown of each of these here. So first of all, starting with the sitemap. This is about diagramming all of the website pages and templates that you're going to need on the site, and making sure that it's done in a format that's structured appropriately for your users to be able to navigate. From there, you need to think about how are those individual pages going to connect together in order to make sure that you've got a really seamless flow for users during all of the different stages of their group buying journey. And from then, you can then start to break it down page by page. So listing out what blocks of content are you going to need on those templates that is going to ensure that you've met the user's needs as well as your business needs, and also to make sure that the website is really usable for people. And only at that point, you're actually starting to think about some actual visuals from the website. So with the wireframes, what you're doing is actually putting a visual format to those pages, but you're making sure that it's purposefully devoid of any of the kind of creative styling. And that's just to make sure that the design agency, as well as all of your stakeholders who are involved in reviewing, are really focused on getting that important structural piece in place before people start getting distracted by things that maybe jump out of designs like colors and visuals and things like that. It really makes sure that you're layering, as I said, in a really good way to make sure that the website is going to be successful. But it is really important that you do have a look at how you're going to get to that design piece. So it's necessary to make sure that you've got a clear design vision that's going to be able to deliver on your goals as well. So by actually looking at the brand and making sure that everyone's in agreement on that, you've actually got the more objective standpoint that you're trying to meet, so you don't end up in the design phase in an argument maybe between different people's sort of personal tastes, which is not a good place for you to be when you're actually trying to make sure that the project is running to time and it's actually going to deliver on those aims. So to give a bit of an example of how all of this research might come to bear when you're actually going through these planning steps, I've got a theoretical example here. So if you can imagine that this is a wireframe of some navigation for a data management platform. We could imagine here that through user interviews, you've actually uncovered that many of your user types don't actually have the necessary experience or maybe technical understanding to be able to navigate your content just through looking at your platform and maybe some of the different features that you've got. So therefore you need to offer them different routes into that content. So maybe by use case or industry. And that in turn can be informed by the Google search data, or maybe by looking at analytics of your existing site and seeing what on there is the most popular. When you're thinking about other items that you want to make really prominent in that primary navigation, you may have looked at competitors and found that in relation to them, you're not doing a very good job actually sharing resources that are going to help to move the group through the buying process as well. So therefore, you might want to create more of a clear resources hub on your site that's going to make you look like the thought leaders that you'd like to be. Conversely, when you're looking at how people interact with your current site around company information, you could have seen in screen recordings or maybe scroll maps, things like that, that actually people are missing key bits of information, or maybe information that might be quite persuasive to them because it's simply spread across too many pages, or the pages are too long, and therefore you want to maybe make that a little bit more concise when you're redesigning. And as a final example here, in terms of the CTA, it's usually best practice to have one clear CTA on the website that everything's structured around, but you might have multiple different ways that you're trying to engage users at the moment, and so it might not be obvious which one of those options you should use. And while you're in the process of carrying out that research, if you've done really thorough stakeholder interviews with people from sales right through to marketing and all the other people that could be involved, it'd be a lot easier for you to have a look at the data that they've got and their experiences and be able to decide which call to action is going to be most important for most people, and really importantly, it's actually going to make people more likely to convert. So it's not just about getting the most clicks you can on the website, it's actually how successful is that going to be when it comes to sales. So whilst you're going through that process, it is possible to do additional research whilst you're actually planning as well. So if you're struggling, for example, with structuring that navigation, there's all sorts of tools that you can use if you want to do some usability testing. So maybe asking participants how they would organize information, or maybe testing a draft navigation that you've got. Obviously, those sorts of things are going to make for a lengthier discovery piece. So it can be a completely legitimate decision to actually keep the discovery a bit lighter than that, and therefore you're able to launch and get some benefits quickly. And from there, actually start to look at testing the website and optimize it further from that point. But the really important thing there is that that is in itself a strategic decision. So you're really clear on why you're doing that, what you're trying to achieve, and you make sure that you do at least have the necessary steps within that discovery so that you're not having to go back and pick everything, people aren't misaligned, and you've actually got a really clear direction forward. So that's all that I'm going to be speaking about today. But I hope that you enjoy the rest of the talks that you're going to experience on FINITE Fest.
And as well, just as a parting gift, if anyone does want to chat to either myself or Nicola further, you can find both of us firstly in the FINITE Slack channel. Failing that, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we can have a bit of a chat about this. All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks.